Hello, Startup Vision. I'm Reza Malekzadeh. I'm a general partner with Partech, and I'm also the president of the French Tech in San Francisco.
Hello, Reza. Thank you for being back on Startup Vision. So we know you as a successful VC at Partech, but today you're with us as the president of the French Tech San Francisco and to speak about the ecosystem in the Silicon Valley. We know it's not easy both personally and financially to develop a business in the United States. What is the motivation for a French startup to come to the United States?
I think generally for those who want to come, their motivation is primarily around the size of the market. If you think about it, the US is just a huge market with one currency, one language, one legal system. And in the case, for example, of enterprise software, it represents over 40% of worldwide IT budget spend, whereas Europe, with multiple countries, multiple legal systems, sometimes multiple languages and currencies, is less than 20%. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to be able to address a far greater market opportunity, then the US makes sense in a lot of cases.
Yeah, very interesting, in fact. And what is the role of the French Tech in helping the French startups to scale up in the US, in fact?
I think the role and the goal of the French Tech is fundamentally to improve the brand France. And by improving the brand France, by highlighting the ecosystem, by putting a lot of positive views on that, then you're generally helping all the entrepreneurs who want to come. It starts with the basics. If someone wants to come and they're welcomed by people who have been there before, they can get tips from them, they can get introductions from them, and they can basically get a much faster start than if they had to do everything from scratch. And then as they reach out to the ecosystem in the US, whether it's other investors, entrepreneurs, or people even around the ecosystem like lawyers, accountants, etc., if the French Tech has a positive image, then they will be encouraged to work with these new coming entrepreneurs. You know, many years ago, at best, the French had a neutral reputation, and generally it was not seen very positively, whereas other ecosystems like the Israeli or the Indians had a pretty positive perception by the rest of the Silicon Valley. And so I think our goal here is to help improve that perception and to help kickstart the efforts of the French entrepreneurs by providing them, I would say, a much smoother landing and a much warmer welcome.
And would you say it's easier or harder for a startup to come directly to Silicon Valley, rather than starting somewhere else?
You know, I think it generally depends on what you're doing. If you just show up and you have no references, no connections, no existing customers, it can be a little bit harder because you're also an unknown person or an unknown entity to begin with. So I think coming to Silicon Valley with already some things that the general Silicon Valley can recognize, like an existing customer or existing use cases or existing investors, can improve your chances of being welcomed by the rest of Silicon Valley. You know, it's kind of this notion of trust that goes from one known entity to another. So it is obviously going to be harder if you know no one or nothing. But don't take me wrong, there have been some very successful examples of people who've just showed up, completely moved their company, and decided to act as a US company from day one, and have been able to learn the Silicon Valley codes very quickly.
Yeah, because we always hear, about this ecosystem where everybody's there. Most of the VCs have offices there. So sometimes it might seem easier because it's like, the birth of everything, of every project. But sometimes it could be harder also because you have a lot of competition.
Yeah, so absolutely. Sometimes it can be harder because you don't know anyone, you have nothing to show for. But you've had cases where people have, for example, aligned with an existing US incubator program, Y Combinator being the most famous out there. Small companies, there were a few people have showed up, they've tried to apply for Y Combinator, they've been accepted, and then they've played the US game. They've moved the rest of the company, went through the program, and then basically acted as a small Silicon Valley startup from day one. And they had a good team, good product, good technology, and were able to raise money in Silicon Valley very, very early on.
And you were speaking about the image of the French startups and everything. Can we say now that the French tech image or perception has changed over the years?
Yes, I think it has greatly changed over the years. I think you've had, a wave of successful French entrepreneurs. You've had, a wave of more and more strong French talent that was hired by startups and larger companies alike. And so the general perception by the Silicon Valley ecosystem has greatly improved. Today, I think people like Algolia are very well recognized as, a successful French company. Evalua is another one, is recognized as a successful French company. French education is perceived very positively. You have a ton of French people in very critical roles in the AI labs at Google or Facebook, for example. You have a lot of French engineers at Apple. And so if you look at all these things, then it has helped improve very dramatically the perception of the French brand in general. And then, it's helping French tech ecosystem overall.
That's great. And can you tell us, you mentioned can you tell us a few success stories, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. It started a few years ago when Criteo was the first French company to be listed on the US stock exchange after a long time. We've had, Business Object many years ago, and then for a while there was kind of this empty space, and Criteo came and filled it as a first company. And then a little bit later, Talend also went public on the US stock exchange. And then you started seeing companies like Algolia, Evalua on the West Coast, but then also French entrepreneurs like the founders of Datadog on the East Coast, who were very successful, raised money, and actually Datadog also got listed on the stock exchange. And so these started helping the brand overall and being recognized successes of the French tech ecosystem. And it kind of trickled down. You have smaller companies like Screen in the security space. French team came to Silicon Valley, did a fantastic fundraising with Greylock. Obviously, they're not done because they're still in their journey, but these are all help showing success and then basically benefiting the French tech ecosystem overall from a branding perspective.
Great. Thank you so much, Reza, for all those information and your thoughts about something that, makes everybody dream. Silicon Valley is the magic word. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.